Good morning, class. Uh, okay, so it seems. So I think right now the microphone is better. All right, good morning. For this session, we'll continue the chapter 6. So in the previous session, we started talking about how policy can impact the market. So we talk about economists as a policy analyst. We said you need to use the theories that you're learning to evaluate and improve the policy decisions. We talk about two common tools that in the policy people use it to impact the outcome of the market. We talk about price ceiling, and then we talk about price floors. For price ceilings, we give you an example, and we discuss about the rent controls. And we see that at the end of the effect of price ceiling in the market is it will cause a shortage in a market. Like a long line for just visiting a place to rent it. For the price floors, which is a legal minimum prices, we talk about the minimum wage. And we see how minimum wage impact the market. And we realize that it causes surplus. Meaning that when the wages are higher, there are more people wanted to supply, less people wanted to recruit these people. And at the end of this result, somehow we are forcing the unemployment rate to go higher. Today we want to talk about tax. Tax is one of the strongest tools that government has to interfere to the market to change the outcome. And there are so many purposes for doing that. Usually the purpose for the most common reason for taxation is that the government wants to raise money or raise revenue for doing a public projects. The projects that will, all of the society, all of the community will get a benefit from it. So before starting and talking and seeing and how this tax is going to impact the market, I'm curious to ask you one question in the beginning, and this is not technically a question of, it's more like a question of your opinion and how you looking at the tax. So when it comes to the tax, one of the very arguable discussion in a political world is who should we tax? Should we tax firms and companies, or should we tax the buyers? So should we tax the sellers, or should we tax the buyers? Should we tax the people that they are consumers, or should we tax the firms and companies? Right now, I want to ask you, what is your opinion as a resident, not as a person who's taking this course? What is your idea about who should we tax, the firms or the people, and why? Yes?
Can you just tax both?
Why?
So that it's not just like one that has to pay tax. It's like you can like instead of they can pay like less tax.
Okay. Yeah, that can be one way. Yes.
I think if you tax firms, they're just going to offset that cost on the buyers anyways.
So you think taxing firms doesn't have technically, you're not taxing them, you're taxing
I think like the government's still going to get like the same amount of tax, it's not going to necessarily like affect the amount of tax, but I think like the cost is going to go to the consumers no matter what.
Any other ideas? Feel free to share your opinion. Should we tax the company? If we want to decide, let's say we want to decide here, we want to decide about just one of these two. What would you choose? What did you hear about this? I mean, even if you don't want to share your opinion, at least you can share what do you think is going on outside. All right. So in this lecture, we will look at how tax gonna impact both of the groups. And then at the end of this class, what I'm aiming for is you can answer this question that who should we tax? You can have a kind of economic sense and perspective from it that gives you a little bit guideline that who should we tax, and does it really matter who should we tax? If it matters, what are the factors can change our decision based on? All right. So government uses taxes to raise revenue for public projects such as roads, schools, and national defense. Legally, the government can make the seller or buyer pay the tax. So this is not a market mechanism. This is a force which government has the legal authority to do this thing. Tax incidence, the manner in which the burden of a tax is shared among participants in a market. So we will analyze this. We will look at how this burden of the tax will be distributed among the people and the firms or buyers and sellers in this market. To start with, let's assume that we have a market. It's a market for a pizza. And we have a D1, which represents the demand. And then we have a supply, which represents, we have S1, which represents the supply. The intersection between demand and supply is the equilibrium in this market. There are 500 pieces of pizza. They are getting sold and getting bought by people at the price of $10. So $10 is the equilibrium price. 500 is the equilibrium quantity. Now we want to see if there is a $1.50 tax imposed on buyers. One important thing is this is not a common way of tax that you probably see it in your daily life, which is percentage of the consumption or percentage of your income or whatever. Here we are just assuming a fixed number on quantity. So as long as you're buying one quantity of this product, you need to pay $1.5 on that. So if you're buying 500 quantity, in this case, you need to pay 500 times 1.1. But so here, how can we show this impact on this graph? 500 originally was $10. And we are imposing this tax to the people. So it means that the buyer is going to pay for it. The price buyers pay is now $1.5 higher than the market price. How we are going to show that, it means that right now the buyers paid $8.5 from these $10, $1.5 is going to be tax. Meaning that right now there is another demand which happened, there is a shift in the demand backward because the production, because the cost of product, the price of product goes higher. To make it more sensible, because this is the way that we usually do it, in term just for drawing the graph. But what it's actually is happening is that when you have a fixed amount of tax on your demand and the buyer is going to pay it, it means that technically from any point on the demand, you're going 1.5 lower at any quantity, because the price, whatever it was before the tax, right now they are demanding it less. So when the demand shift downward or to the left because of the existence of the tax, what is happening is then you're going to have a new equilibrium, which is this point. Let me see, sorry. So if P falls from 10 to 8.5, buyers are willing to purchase 500 pizzas. But right now, 1.5 is technically the tax part. So it means that the new demand that you're going to draw is going to be shifted in the lower part. And then if you want to calculate what is going to be the equilibrium in this market, is going to be the new point that is here. Is there any question about this? So first of all, intuitively, what happened was the tax imposed to the market. So the tax imposed to the market, it means that right now the price of any amount that you want to buy right now, you need to pay more, because you need to pay for tax too. What is happening here intuitively, it means that products become more expensive from the buyer's perspective, because right now you're paying, let's say, if you pay $8 for this product, then you need to pay $1.5 at the top of it. So the product that previously you could have for $10, $8, whatever, right now you can have it for $1.5 more. You need to pay $1.5 more to have it. And as an impact of it, that technically means the demand curve will shift lower. The way that we can calculate how much the shift is, and the way that we calculate it is it's technically the exact amount of tax that is going to shift lower. And that's why we show it here. So as a way of drawing the impact, you just say whatever the equilibrium was, you're going down exactly the same amount of the tax, which is $1.5, and so we go down from 10 to 8.5 in this chart. And then you draw a line, which is your new demand curve, parallel to the previous one. Because in this case, the tax is fixed, and it's 1.5, so if you are here, again, the impact is again 1.5. If you're here, again, it's 1.5. So all of these distances are the same, the vertical distance. So after you shift, you realize how you can shift the demand curve in the existence of the tax, then you need to find a new equilibrium in this market. And finding a new equilibrium is, I think you already know it. It's the intersection of the new demand with the supply curve, which is going to be this current point. So the quantity demanded, the equilibrium quantity demanded is 450 in this case, and the equilibrium price is 9.5. When it's arrived to this equilibrium, then you can see how much is getting paid by how much consumers are paying for having this good, and how much sellers getting paid. It's reflected in different terms of price. So when you're going to buy a product right now in any store, the price of the product is, for example, in this case, let's say $9.5. But what you're really going to pay to the person, cashier who is staying there, it's not 9.5, it's $11. So the price of products is 9.5, you're paying 11. 11 is getting collected by the supplier, but technically 1.5 of it is going to the pocket of the government. Any question from here? Yes?
Wait, is this the same change that happened like the previous slide?
Yes. So this distance, vertical distance, and this one are exactly the same. So tax is 1.5, right? So here is 9.5, 11, which is 1.5 distance. And if we go back, here again, it's 8.5, 10, which is 1.5. So all of these are the same. So one thing is, in the real world, if you don't want to draw a chart, you don't need to do it this way. But the way that we are doing it in this way, because it's easier for you to memorize it how you need to draw the chart. But technically what is happening is if you have the demand, then you want to tax all of these people by, I'm just assuming, let's say 4 points here on this demand. So if you wanted to tax these people by any amount, any fixed amount, like let's say right now $2, what will happen is for any right now the demand for all of these will shift by $2 to the lower. So all of the, at each point, they need to pay $2 for any quantity that they are buying. And in that case, when you want to draw the new line, then this new line is parallel to this one. So it doesn't really matter which point you're deciding on vertically shifting it down. The reason that we do it here based on equilibrium is, first of all, right now it's easier for you to memorize it in this way. But second of all is, when you apply the tax, the status quo, the stage 1, or let's say even a stage 0, price was $10. So the first impact is the $10 right now going to 8.5 for the seller, meaning that previously it was 10, but right now 1.5 of it, the consumer paying it to the government, and 8.5 goes to the pocket of seller. So let me just go through it again. So you have a market. There is a 1.5 tax dollars. You just shift it down, and you're saying, okay, for this equilibrium price, I'm going 1.5 vertically, I'm going 1.5 lower, and that's the impact of tax. And then I'm drawing a parallel line to my previous demand from this new point, which becomes this. So right now, you in this step, you identify what is your new demand. And right now, what you need to do as a third step is to find an equilibrium, the new equilibrium. So new equilibrium become here. All right, you find a new equilibrium. But right now in this equilibrium, this new equilibrium, how much people paying, how much sellers getting, how much government is getting. So sellers getting paid by 9.5, but the buyer is paying $11. But this $11, 1.5 of it is going to the pocket of the government. Yeah.
How are they like paying $11 if equilibrium's like down there? Oh, wait, never mind, this is showing that.
So the equilibrium in the market is 9.5. It means that you as a buyer, you pay 9.5 for the product as a price, and the seller get this 9.5 as the price of this product that they're selling. But you as a buyer need to pay 1.5 for this, whatever this transaction that's happening to the government. That means that you're paying $11 as a buyer, but this $11 are not the price of the product. This is the accumulation of $9.5, which is the price of the product, and 1.5, which is the tax that you pay. Any other question about that? To be honest, this is a bit confusing. I mean, if I remember, even I was reading it, I was a bit confused too. Yes?
Yeah, I just wanted to know how it jumped from $10 to $11.
Well, from 10, oh, okay. So what is happening here is this $10 is the equilibrium before the tax exists. And then the equilibrium for this product, for this price of determining what is going to be the new price of product as an impact of government taxing this market from buyers, the new price of product becomes 9.5. So buyer and seller go through the interaction and buying and selling based on 9.5. But buyers at the same time that they are paying 9.5 for this transaction, which is to get this product, but they are paying 1.5 at the top of it, which goes to the higher part, and that's $11. And that 1.5, as you see, the difference of this green part is the tax. So they are paying it to the government.
So sorry, why are they paying, so they end up paying $11, right? And then why did we say $8.50 before, if they were willing to pay that much?
So $8.50, if they want to stay in the quantity of 500, again, in that 500, we don't have equilibrium because there is no supply happening there, right? One thing is, if I go back again, here as you can see, so we use this to identify how we are going to shift the demand. But as you can see, when I shifted the demand, right now, this cannot be equilibrium because supplier at 8.5, they will supply this much. So it cannot be equilibrium because there is what? There is a shortage. And what is shortage causing? Gradually this price going high, 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 and right here. That's actually something that is happening. So, but you don't need to know what is the process to reach the equilibrium. But overall, it's you just, from previous equilibrium, again, this is the equilibrium in the market. Tax is 1.5, so you shift the equilibrium point 1.5 lower, then you draw the new demand, which goes through this new point that you identify, and this is parallel to the previous demand. And after you identify the new demand, then you're going to find an equilibrium. So you find the equilibrium right now, you know, based on the demand and supply, 9.5 is going to be the price of product, and that's the amount that the seller is getting paid. But consumer at the same time, they are going to pay $11 because they are paying 1.5 for tax, as a tax. So this is something that the reason that it's become confusing for you is, so this is have been taught in this way from, I think, even you look at the source books, usually they define it in this way. And it's been taught even when I was a student in this way. And it always was confusing. The reason is because the easier way of saying it is for simplicity, it's easier to teach this in a way of showing it as a shift in demand or shifting it in supply. But so this is a bit beyond the scope of you, but just for you to know another way that you can actually identify this. Whenever you have any amount of fixed tax, just look at it as it means that the difference between the price that sellers will receive or payers will give, so the difference between these two prices, the two agents in this market will face two different prices. And that's part of the taxation. So always in a market, what you learned was equilibrium price, the price that people trade is exactly the same. So I paid $8 and you get $8 for this. So this is one product, $8 I pay, you get $8. But one factor when the tax comes along, it means that right now the receiver, the trade is not between two people. It's technically between three people. So you need to, if you want to show it in a graph, you can just assume this difference, which is, for example, now, which is $2 as a sum. So this is $2 tax. What you really need to do is you get this $2, you go from here until it arrives somewhere like this. Meaning that if you put this $2 here, so it's not on the curve, you shift it until, for example, you shift it here, still it's not on the curve. If you shift it here, it's not on the curve. There is only one quantity that if you shift it, this $2 will be here. So what is happening is there is only one distance between these two lines, which is $2. And in that distance, meaning that right now I find a quantity right now I find a quantity that is that all of these three agents can do the trade. Still the point on the supply curve, so at this quantity, the point on the demand, it reflects the number of people they are willing to pay $11. And then in the point on the supply, it's showing us the number of people are willing to sell at $9. So we find a quantity, the same quantity for supply, for the demand, same quantity different price and the difference is $2. In this case, then this $2 can go to the pocket of an external agent, which is the government, and still the trade can happen. Because meaning that I shift, not shifting, I just go through back, I find a number of buyers that they are willing to pay higher price. And then at that quantity, I find a number of sellers that they are willing to sell at a lower price. Then the difference between these two, right now I'm taking it for myself. And the reason that we are shifting the demand and then again we find a point and then again we do that, it's okay, I don't want to just go beyond that, so I just stay on it. So overall, the fixed number, it's technically you don't need to shift a demand and supply. Shifting a demand and supply is a way that we just wanted to evaluate how we can find this point. But right now you see this, so let's go back to our slides and assume that we want to use this approach to go further and find this, see the impact of taxation on the market. So previously we looked at an example which was we were taxing the buyers. But, so here again, it's the tax incidence, how the economic burden of the tax is shared among market participants. Then right now you can see that the amount of tax is this much. Previously the equilibrium was 10, right now 9.5 is getting received by the sellers, but $11 is getting paid by the consumer. Which this difference, which is 1.5, is the tax that's going to the pocket of external agent who is not here, which is a government. One way of, so now the reason that we put this $10 here was because we want to compare the situation before tax with after tax to see who's getting, what is the burden on this people, right? On the consumer and on the buyers. Previously, the equilibrium price was 10. Now, sellers are receiving 9.5, and the buyers, they are paying $11. $1 more is getting paid by the consumer, half of dollars less getting it's getting received by the sellers. One thing that we noticed right now was we taxed the buyers, but there was an impact on sellers because right now sellers are selling their product at a lower price too. So sellers get 0.5 less. And that's the way that we show the tax incidence. Let's go through another example and then again we will discuss about this more. And probably it's gradually become more clear for you when we're going further. So right now we want to do it in a different way. We want to tax this time the sellers, not buyers. So if I want to tax the sellers, right now I'm saying there's 1.5 per unit tax on sellers. So from the equilibrium, I'm going 1.5 higher. Then at this point, I'm drawing a new supply curve. And why? Because I'm right now intuitively I'm trying to uh, define the effect of tax on sellers, and I'm saying when you tax the companies, the cost of production going high, so it means that the supply curves needed to shift back, and then how much it's going to shift back, it's exactly equal to the amount of tax. Vertical difference between supply 1 and supply 2 after tax is exactly the vertical distance equal to the amount of tax. And then after I identify what is the new supply in this market, I need to find the equilibrium in this market. I'm finding the equilibrium, and that's the intersection between the new supply curve and demand. Quantity is 450. $11 needed to be paid by consumers, and again 9.5 will be received from received by the supplier. And this difference between 11 and 9.5 is 1.5 tax. One thing that we see right now is, we just apply the tax on sellers or suppliers, we arrive to the same result. And now if we want to compare this final result with the stage 0 when there was no tax, so I'm looking at the equilibrium, which was 10, and then $11 is the amount that people pay, so it's $1 higher than the previous equilibrium, and the supplier getting half of dollars less. So right now, let's talk about it a little bit intuitively. What we observed was the government coming to the market. They're saying that 1.5 is the amount of tax that I want to get from any product that you're selling. And then what is happening is part of it, the market will change, the mechanism will change, the people will react to it, and then it will reach to the part that $1 in our example going from the pocket of consumers, but half of dollars going from the pocket of the company, no matter which one we are taxing. So it means that whoever you tax, the impact of the tax will be the same on the market, and it will impact the firms, supplier, or the consumer exactly in the same way that if you do it if you take the tax from the firms or if you take the tax from consumers. But how this can change, meaning, so if it's not about who we are taxing, what is it about? What determines that here $1, so from $1.5, why $1 is going it's getting paid by the buyers, but only $0.5 is getting paid by sellers. So the difference here, if you can't see it, is so this is the equilibrium, let's say. Then we said if you have $2 tax or whatever the tax is, then you're going to, let's say the tax in this case is $5, for example. Then we said this is the $5 tax. And then we said this part of it is consumer, and this part of it getting paid by the producer. So how this will change, right now I'm just drawing I'm going to draw another one. Let's say this was a status quo, and I outlined the $5 here. And right now, this is my $5 tax. Right now, this amount of it is getting paid by the consumer will pay this amount. At the end, the producer will pay this amount. So what is it about?
The supplies.
So we see that here the producer will list, no matter who you're going to tax, at the end of it, we realize it really doesn't matter who you're going to get the tax from. Is it the producer or is it the consumer? And then we saw when I just changed the figures, the slope of the supply and demand. Here, from this $5, the producer will pay less than the consumer. But in another example that I did, right now, producer paying more than consumer. What did I change in these two graphs? If you see here, the demand curve is steeper. The supply curve is more flatter. Here, the demand is more flatter, the opposite way. The supply is more steeper. In the chapter 5, we discuss about this. What is the definition of what I right now said, the steeper, flatter? In terms of economics, we call it elasticity. So it means that right now in this market, supply becomes inelastic, demand becomes elastic. What was the definition of it? Elastic means you can easily respond to the price changes. Inelastic means it's very difficult for you to respond to the price changes. So right now, assume in this market, suppliers are the people, it's very difficult for them to change, to respond to the price changes. But for consumers, it's easy to respond to price changes. And when it's easy for you to change your decision, so I'm gonna put less impact on you. So market mechanism will put less impact on you, will take more of this tax from the group side that they are, it's very difficult for them to actually respond to the price changes. So here, we can't tax the producer higher just because it's difficult for producer to respond to the price changes. And supply is steeper, meaning that the supply is inelastic. But in the opposite scenario, right now the producer is more elastic to the price. But if this is the demand that it's inelastic. And so it means that for consumers it's very difficult to really respond to the price changes. So right now if we see all of that, right now just think about it. When there is a tax increase or tax decrease, usually we think about it, okay, it's going to impact us. But right now, one question, if you tax pharmaceutical company more, who is paying for it? You're going to the pharmaceutical company and the government saying, pharmaceutical company, they're making lots of money. This is not fair and they should be taxed. You're taxing pharmaceutical company. Who's actually at the end going to pay for it?
The consumer.
Who?
The consumer.
The consumer. Why?
Because the price is inelastic, so you can just ramp up the...
Yeah, so because medicine is necessity for them. So the demand for it is completely inelastic, meaning that you need it. This is a necessary. So in that case, when the demand is very inelastic, it means that it doesn't matter who you're taxing. If you're taxing the company at the end, these are the consumers going to pay for it. So in the taxation process, technically it's not about who you are taxing, it's about in the market of that product that you try to tax it, to apply the tax in that market, who has higher elasticity, technically, who can easily respond to the price changes. The group that they can easily respond to the price changes, they are the group that they will pay less tax. All right, so at the end, we want to wrap this elasticity and tax incidence. So when a good is taxed, which curve shifts depends on whether the tax is levied on buyers or sellers. Irrelevant for determining the tax incidence. Buyers and sellers of the good share the burden of the tax. But how exactly is the tax burden divided depends on the elasticity of demand and elasticity of supply. So elasticity will tell you who's at the end of the day, who's going to pay how much tax, no matter who's you're taxing. So if there is no tax, this is the situation. If there is a tax, that's the case. And as you can see, this is price of sellers, the price that sellers see, the price that buyers see, the difference from the price if there is no tax, so the difference of PB from the previous equilibrium is bigger than this, so it means that the burden is more on buyers. But at the same time, if we just a little bit change the elasticity of supply and demand, right now in this case, if you tax this market, then the price that PB is the price that the buyers face, PS is the price that supplier face. The buyer's share of the tax burden is technically less than the seller's share of the tax burden. So that's going to be it. But just one important thing again is, so you saw that in the beginning we started by shifting the supply and shifting the demand to understand what is the impact of the tax in the market. But at the same time, I told you that technically you don't need to shift any demand or supply. This is just the vertical distance. You need to find that vertical distance. Just keep that in mind.